Okay, so obviously you did a little bit of e-collar training with him here. What do you use it for typically at this point?
To be completely honest with you,
Yeah.
to get the attention in high stress situations.
Yep.
And a lot of the times what it's turned into is almost, I hate to say it, but almost punishment in a way.
That's fine.
And
I mean,
I don't mean,
it's a use of it. Yeah.
I don't mean it like, hey, you're bad, I'm
Sure.
going to e-collar or do it. It's,
Yeah.
hey, he's doing something bad right now.
Yep.
I don't have this near me. So it's almost like, oh, I need to go run, find that because he's doing something bad.
Sure.
And then do that.
But he usually wears the collar most days.
Yeah.
Yep.
Most days, and like usually we try to buzz him when he's barking.
Yep.
And stay quiet. And then when we go on walks, which if he's barking or
Sure.
to heel, like he doesn't really heel.
Yeah.
And then usually like, I know like when we were trained, you're supposed to click him to sit and like lay down and stuff too,
Yeah.
but I mean, I usually don't click him because he listens to
Yes.
being clicked.
So there's a lot of philosophies with e-collar training, obviously, right? Like it's another one of those tools where it can be used a lot of different ways, obviously, right? As far as, one of the uses is as punishment. Now punishment doesn't, I think there's like kind of like a negative connotation with that word sometimes where it's like this bad thing, where all punishment is obviously adding a consequence in for non-compliance of something the dog knows what to do, right? So punishment could be you tell him sit, he doesn't sit, we give a correction for it. That would be the implementation of punishment for not sitting, right? Punishment could be he's barking out the window and we give a correction for that to get him to stop doing that. That would be considered punishment, right?
That's how it's been.
Yeah.
It's usually, I'd say 80%
Yeah,
of our time.
which is completely fine, obviously, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And once we've trained the dog, right? Once we've checked the box, the dog knows what to do, we typically move to the avoidance stage of training, which is where we give punishment for not listening. You know what I mean? And the goal is that we don't have to give the punishment because the dog understands the boundaries, right? I think it's really the word that, people kind of like develop that negative association with, obviously, right? The other idea is like you were saying, like when you give your sit command, right? You're prompting with the command, right? Some people will call that like command amplification, right? Meaning that we give stimulation with the command to speed up the dog's response to the command. Now, that stage is typically in the early teaching stages of things, at least the way that a lot of people will use it. But once the dog understands the command, yeah, I mean, obviously if he's listening to the sit, I'm not gonna like tap while I'm giving the sit command, you know what I mean? I typically transition to just giving the correction if I need to, right? So it sounds like obviously at this stage, you're kind of just using it if he's, if you're asking him to do something, he's not doing it, you implement the e-collar for not doing it. Is that kind of correct?
We used to, back at our old house before the move, because this whole move thing is really new. It's
Sure.
in the last 3 weeks or so.
You guys just got here?
Just got
Oh, nice.
And well, he's obviously they're parts of the family, right?
Sure.
So when he's uncomfortable, that was the first thing we did when we came up here.
Yeah.
Hey, we need to
Gotta get this under control.
Trust him, and if we don't trust him, it's not going to be a good situation for him.
100%.
We're going to lock him up and do that. And so
Yeah.
that was for us to get up here and do that. But before we moved up here, we would do training in our backyard. Sit, stay, or sit. Let's see, we would do place, we would do crate, we would do heel.
Yeah.
All those little things, we would do that in our backyard as
Sure.
training. And so he kind of saw it as training for a while. But
Yeah.
like I said, as of late, been more correction.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, cool. All right, so so what I want to do here is I want to take a look at you working a couple of different commands with him, see how you're doing it currently, see how he listens to it, and kind of go from there. So I'm assuming he knows, does he know like a place command and stuff?
Yeah,
Okay,
he knows
cool.
Place, he knows crate. We do sit. Recently, which stinks, is that the way that we did training was sit was also stay. It was not. But recently, he likes to continue to move. And so we've, out of the awful habit of just knowing what it means to us.
Sure.
We've used
Say stay.
We said stay.
That's fine. Yeah.
So,
So we train the same way as it sounds like your other trainer from the standpoint we don't really use a stay, just because like there's never a time you're going to tell them place or sit or down or whatever, but get up whenever you want to. So it's just kind of redundant, Typically speaking, if we're finding us having a hard time with getting the dog to hold the position without stay, that just highlights there's some sort of communication issue, you know what I mean? Something about how we're trying to get him to do the command or enforce the command is sloppy and confusing him, more or less, right? So let's do this. Let's start with the place command. I want to see you try to do a couple place commands over there with him.
okay, do you want to take him off collar or leave him on?
However you typically would do it. I don't care.
So normally it would be off collar, but at the same time, I know the trust issues, I don't want to put anybody in danger here. So.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to be petting him if he comes up to us. So however you want to do it, whatever's common for you.
Jax. Jax, please. Jax, please. Jax, please. Oh, come on, Jax. Good boy.
And when you were giving commands there, were you tapping while you were doing so, or? Okay.
That's how we were always
Sure.
training.
Yep.
It was always 3.
Okay.
It was whenever we were giving a command, it was 1, 2, 3, because we have it on. So do you guys use dog tread? Like you guys use?
E-collar tech, but I'm familiar with the collar. Yeah.
So we were told to use the mitt instead of the constant.
Yep.
And then do 3 taps was how we were doing it. And so he starts usually at about 20, is about his number.
Sure.
But you know, it's something like this.
Yes.
You know, I'm in the 30s right now.
Yeah, understood. All right, well, let's do a couple more of those. Let's see how he looks.
Good boy. Jax, come. Jax, place. Place. Good boy, Jax, sit. Good boy. Stay. Jax, break.
Okay.
Jax, sit. No, sit. Good boy. Jax down. Good boy. No, down. Sit. Sit. Good boy.
And let's do one more place command here.
Okay, Jax, place. Place. Break. Good boy.
Okay, cool. You can let him hang out for a second. Okay, so first impression on all of that, he clearly knows this stuff, right? Like, you know, his general understanding once you got him into the place of staying there seemed fine, right? He sat when you asked him to sit, he downed when you asked him to down, right? That all looked pretty good, frankly, from an understanding of his point. Here's my issue, right? So, and I see this a lot with e-collar training, right? There's too much stim going on and it's confusing him. That's a lot of what I'm seeing right now. For example, the sit and the down right there, the predicting getting back into that sit and stuff, he's just trying to figure out how to avoid that correction. We're not giving him an opportunity to do it correctly. You know what I mean? And that's why I don't typically do the command amplification kind of style where I'm prompting with every single time I give a command, because I think you can kind of create a frantic dog with it. You know what I mean? Where they're just trying to like figure out, what do I do to avoid this pressure constantly? And they're not really processing what information am I being given. You know what I mean? Second thing that I'm noticing right off the rip here, you're moving really fast with a lot of your training, right? So it's like place, sit, down, this, that, right? We're doing a lot of different things, and he's never having a chance to kind of settle into the position and then be like, okay, cool, I did it correct. This is what he wanted me to do. Let's chill here for a minute. You know what I mean? So what we're gonna focus on here today with him is seeing, as we make a couple of tweaks to some of these commands, how does his behavior change overall, right? So let's do this. I'm gonna have you give me the e-collar remote, but I'm gonna have you work him. Yeah, Nick Button, he's on black collar.
He's in the black, yep.
Perfect. Okay, so we're gonna start with just the place command here right now, right? So no sit on place, no sits off of place or anything like that. Simply place command. We're gonna use the blue bed for this here, right? So what you're gonna do in a second here is you're gonna walk up to the place. When you get next to it, you're gonna give your place command one time, and then from there, just let it breathe for a minute, right? Don't rush into a correction or anything like that, obviously. You're just gonna give that place command, let it chill for a second, see what he's gonna do. If he kind of gets on and like sniffs his way onto the bed and stuff, I'm cool with that initially. When we generalize to a new place, like if I bring my dogs to a new place and I tell them place on something they've never placed on before, they're sniffing their way onto it also. You know what I mean? It's like a new thing. It's like there's been a gazillion dogs on this already today. I'm sure it smells pretty interesting, right? So we'll give him a chance to kind of figure it out. Once we've confirmed he's made a decision if he's either gonna do it or he's not gonna do it, from there we'll either do our duration where we have him hold the position, or we'll give our correction at that point. And when we give a correction at this point, it's not gonna be just a tap, we're gonna pair in a no marker with that, right? So we're just gonna mark with no, we'll tap our button, then we'll give our command again after that. Does that make sense? So go ahead and walk him right up to there. Once you get next to it, give that place command, then just let it breathe for a minute.
Jax, place.
And just give it a second there. See what he's gonna do. And then in a second here, once he's confirmed to either doing it or not doing it, which I'd say he's probably not gonna do it at this point, mark with no one time.
No.
Then tell him place again.
Jax, place.
And then give him another second. Yep, you can fix your leash if you need to. And then give him a second. And then same deal, if in a minute here he confirms he's not doing it, you can mark with no again.
Jax, no.
And then tell him place again.
Jax, place.
And try to keep your tone really consistent and like non-emotional with it.
Jax, no.
And tell him. There we go, perfect. Cool. Now, no stay or anything, just drop your leash and leave him there. Now, same deal, if he were to get up at this point, we would mark with no, we would give our tap, and we would help him back, right? And what I want to see over the next couple repetitions here is if in between all this information that we're giving him that space, if he starts to process this and start thinking through it a little bit more on his own, right? So we'll give him a second there. So it looks like he's holding it pretty well. So you can go back. I want you to pick up your leash, but then just wait for a minute. Don't release him or anything yet. So anytime when we're doing duration, if we have a leash on him, I always pick up the leash and pause first before releasing to make sure he's not seeing me getting that leash as the cue to get up, right? So now he's staying there, so you could break him off. Perfect. Then let him hang out for a second here, and then you could walk him right back over, and then do it again. And as far as that pulling and stuff right there, I don't care about that right now. All I care about is the place command. Much better. Same deal, you can set your leash down and leave him there. Very good. Go ahead and go back. Pick up that leash and pause for a second. Mark with no. Then help him back on. Very good. Yep. We'll just do a couple of those. Right back to mom. Now, even though he got on his own, why don't you go ahead and give your place command still? Perfect. So I don't care if he beats you to it. We braked him off, meaning that there's no expectation. He's free. So if he gets on, totally fine. If I need him to stay there, I'm just going to still give that command, even if he's already on it. And then we'll do 2 more of these. Mark with no. Perfect. Two more. Very good. One more. Perfect. All right, looks much better. Okay, so what we're gonna do next is we're gonna work on a down stay with him. Now, I saw you working like sit and down a little bit. I don't get super crazy with sit and down, right? If you look at your stationary command, so whether it's a sit or a down position, the whole purpose of it is just to keep the dog in one spot, right? So because of that, like we're not training a competition dog here, like he doesn't need to be all crazy alternating and stuff. And I find that sometimes if you work too much of that, especially when you're using a lot of pressure and stuff for it, you wind up just kind of messing up your sit and your down a little because they're constantly just like guessing which one they should be in. So we're gonna pick down and just work with that for right now, and just make sure that he's really good with just that command. So I want you to do the same exact process here where you're gonna pick a spot over there, you're gonna put him into a down, you're gonna give that command one time, let it breathe for a minute. At that point, if he doesn't do it, same process, we'll mark with no, give our correction, then repeat that down command.
Yeah, the first trainer that we did, they wanted to use something called puppy push-ups.
Puppy push-ups, yeah. Listen, you get back to like reward-based training. If I'm doing reward-based training and I want to teach fun things like that, it's fine because that's more of a trick, you know what I mean? But when you get into functional obedience and like I'm gonna be correcting and like punishing the dog for not doing it, that kind of defeats the trick, fun, like mental stimulation aspect of it, you know? So. And give it a minute, see what he's gonna do. And then while you're, there you go. And then same deal, give him another minute there, see what he's gonna do. Perfect. You know, sometimes like when we're dealing with a dog that gets easily distracted by stuff, like right there, he seemed like he was distracted by something going on in that room right there. Sometimes we could get just as distracted as the dog. It's like, oh my God, he's distracted. I need to tell him to do something else. Suppose, like I said, it's no big deal. I'm just focused on the task at hand here right now. And I'm gonna give him a minute, see if he focuses back in or not. From there, I'm just gonna correct for it all the same. So, and then same process here, if we were to break this command, we would mark with no, give a correction, then we would take him as close back to that same spot and put him back into a down position. So.
Yeah, he's, to your point, sometimes it's very, trying to understand what's going on,
Yeah.
hyper aware.
Sure.
The other thing too is if we were to go behind us, behind that black screen,
Yeah, out of sight and stuff.
all of a sudden he's gonna run up trying to find the light.
Yep.
That's help. That's down.
Let me give him a second. Excellent. So all we're doing right now is we're just creating a really, really consistent way of being able to enforce these commands. That's all I'm trying to just kind of pattern in with you guys right now. And what that'll do is that'll make it 10 times more consistent for jacks, right? And consistency is key. That's what helps them get to a place where they don't need the correction. You know what I mean?
You know, it's interesting because, and I really like this because even when we did our first training,
Sure.
one of the things that we talked about was I got to a nervous point where was never really brought up as a problem.
Sure.
You're doing it until you get the answer you want.
Yeah.
And so he never really knew what no truly meant. You know, so we were like leave it or off.
Sure.
It was never hey, you're doing something bad. It's leave that one distraction.
Yeah. And this is where, you know, I've, like over the years, just tried to simplify the program as much as possible to make it easier for the dogs and the owners, right? So like leave it and off and quiet and all of those different commands. I don't teach any of those because I know is kind of my universal, whatever you're doing right now, I just don't want you to do. So like, why do I need 17 different commands for it, right? And past that, again, it's a delicate conversation because it's not like I'm all for correcting, you know what I mean? Like that's what's gonna get you past a lot of these issues. It's just being a little bit more artful about how we're adding it in a way he's going to understand it better. Where you could get real caught up on just like jamming that button until you get compliance and then you just confuse the shit out of the dog, you know?